And now, the making of the deal, a real estate approach to hospitality, featuring moderator Kathleen Squires and panelists Keith Durst, Graceanne Jordan, and Jasmine Moy.
Keith wanted to do like a Blues Brothers style entrance, but I haven't done a back handspring in a long time, so.
I said Ronnie would do it for her, though.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Shari, for organizing this amazing conference. I am very excited about this panel, the making of a deal, because I really know nothing about making deals, and I'm with three people who know everything about successful restaurant partnerships. Keith Durst is the founder of F.O.S.T, which stands for Friend of Chef. He's the founder and principal of it. He curates hospitality concepts all over the world. And he marries real estate, hospitality, and everything necessary for a successful partnership. One thing that you don't know about Keith is that he's also a great neighbor. Graceanne Jordan. Graceanne combines years of management expertise. She's worked with every big name in the business: Tom Colicchio, Jean-Georges von Gerichten, Union Square Hospitality Group, and one thing that you might not know about Grace is that she also has a background in psychology, which comes in really handy for management. And then Jasmine Moy is an attorney, and she specializes in putting together food and beverage negotiations. And she is also a wonderful author and writer. So thank you guys all for being here. First, why don't we start with you all telling us what it is that you do. What is your role in making of a restaurant deal? We'll start with Keith. What has to happen for someone to say, get me Keith Durst?
Okay, Ronnie. So what we do at F.O.S.T and what our team does is we tend to work mostly with developers, real estate developers, and great restaurant groups. Mostly here in New York as far as the restaurant groups are based, but now all over the country and some parts of Europe as well. And what we really do is we have the ability to help developers make their real estate more valuable through the use of hospitality, experiential retail, different sources of ways of making changes that people can say, okay, I have a space, I have 10, 15, 20,000 square feet of retail space or ground floor space or basement space in a building that's 600,000 square feet or 1 million square feet. And we're gonna use that 10 or 20,000 square feet of space to make the 1 million square feet more valuable. And that's really what my group does.
Graceanne.
Hi, good morning. Where I come in is probably the other side of Keith, is I work more with operators and chefs. A lot of people that I've worked with in my time in operations, and try to put together relationships that I feel will work really well based on vision and how people kind of have moved through their career. I also work with a real estate and banking family here in New York, helping them curate these experiences in their buildings, where we're building amenities and looking for chefs and third-party businesses that can come in and make, much like what Keith said, the real estate more valuable for per square footage.
And Jasmine.
Very similar to Keith and Graceanne. Essentially, once the partnership is found, or once the developers and the operators have found each other, all of that needs to be papered in a way that makes sense and that protects everybody in the ways that matter. So all of my work is in just documenting and making sure that all the contracts are buttoned up the way that they should be to set everyone up for success.
So now that you've told me what you officially do, why don't you tell me what you do that people don't realize that you do? What do you do kind of behind the scenes that nobody even realizes? Graceanne, we'll start with you. You mentioned some interesting things to me last night about, I said, I didn't really know that was in your job description.
Yeah, I think having a hospitality approach to these real estate projects is really important. I find and Keith will tell you as well, that people are figuring out that we want to feel good in the spaces we're in, and the experiences are so important. And we're starting to think about everything from, walking into this room, how does it feel for someone to get into the center row when you have 9 chairs across? How does it feel to walk into a building and have to have your driver's license out and sign in with security? How do we take those pain points and make them more comfortable for entering the building? And in these real estate projects, you want people to feel like, the whole hubbub of getting through New York, that once they get to their destination, that it's a bit of an oasis. They have maybe a nice aroma, they're hearing great music, and they just feel like they've arrived at a place that they can feel comfortable. And that's from everything of, not to disparage security guards, but when you see the man in the suit with the clipboard and the pen, it'd be so much more of a better experience if that person was perhaps wearing their own clothes, or smiling and asking how your day was, offering some help of where your destination maybe that you're going, and kind of engaging, each time you come into the building. So we're, looking at how many steps it takes you to come into the building, what it feels like to pull out your phone and use a QR code to enter instead of, having to kind of sign up on a clipboard. How does it feel to go through a turnstile? How fast are the elevators? All these things that are going to make you successful in your visit for the day.
Jasmine, what is not in your job description that you often find yourself doing?
I think generally speaking, and maybe I would be better off with a background like Graceanne's, but I think these, it's emotional. It's emotional to get into these deals. It's emotional to have these conversations. All the parties are putting a lot at risk in terms of time and money, and people are getting cold feet. People are stressed out about X, Y, or Z. So there's a lot of me either saying this actually doesn't feel good, and I'm not sure that this is right for you, or how do you feel? So a lot of sort of counseling folks about whether a very specific deal is the right one for them at this moment in their career. So a little counseling, I guess.
That's where the psychology comes in.
Yes, exactly. And Keith?
So I think what most people don't realize is we do a lot of things from ground up, from day one up, before things are even happening, where we're actually helping people lay spaces out, block patterns out, do all the financials, all the modeling, and then actually doing it from a development side, but then also having to jump around and do it from an operator side where they haven't really had experience working with bigger developers. They're used to working on one-off restaurants with small groups and things. They don't really understand the mechanics of working with a large company that has a whole host of departments and interdepartmental meetings and everything happening. So we really have to usher them through all that, and then while we're doing that, also keep things moving in somewhat of an organized fashion, and then really do a ton of matchmaking with different groups that we really like working with. So for us, it's a matter of knowing and understanding the groups that we like working with, and hope that the developers and restaurateurs want to work with them too. We know their systems, and we try to get people to kind of play along and really try to usher it through together. And that's where all this stuff becomes so important, the agreements that are being drawn, and we're doing multiple pro formas and multiple models, one for an agreement, one for the bank, one to live by. And as you're doing all these things, like knowing that half of what gets into this agreement, at some point you just have to have people that are just willing to take some leap of faith and say, okay, we believe in who we're working with. So I heard it one time, and I think it's a motto of our company that you can't do a good deal with bad people, and you can't do a bad deal with good people. And I think for us, we really spend a lot of time making sure the people we're working with are people we want to spend the next couple of years with.
So in keeping with the theme of today, what does the ultimate deal look like to each of you? What does it take for you to say, I'm all in? And we'll start with you, Jasmine.
Well, I'm in a slightly different position because I'm, I'm the help. If they're all in, I will be all in because they're paying me to be all in. And to the extent that there's a part of this that isn't exactly right, it's me doing my best to communicate why, toggling this way, or adjusting this thing this way is actually better for both parties, especially, Keith was talking in the hotel space in particular. You've got the building owner, you've got the hotel manager, you maybe have a brand involved. If the property, if there are mortgages on the property, you've got the bank involved, then you've got the food and beverage manager involved. So it's, there's 6 or 7 people in the same sandbox. And just, making sure that everything is calibrated in a way that makes sense and reduces friction. And, although Keith said you can try to anticipate every single thing that might go wrong in any single kind of deal, the addressing that as a 4,000-page document, that's not what they look like. So you do have to be able to work with people, be flexible and things like that as well, once a contract is signed.
Keith, what does it take for you to say I'm all in?
Well, I think for us, it's a project that my team has to love everything we do, because there's so much time and energy that's put into it. So we all have to kind of sit down as a team and get organized and look at it, and everyone has to get excited about it. And then we have to say as a team that we're willing to reinvest our fees and different things into that project. And if I look around and the team's not willing to do that, then I know it's not a project we should take. And we're kind of, what I've learned, and Jasmine probably won't like this very much, is, we get these contracts for consulting contracts put in front of us all the time, and Graceanne probably too, and I don't want to sign them. Like, they don't protect us at all. So for me, I could spend 3 months negotiating this and go through all this stuff, and then if one of my development partners that we're working with, if they don't want to pay us or they don't want us around anymore, what am I going to do? So for us, we do our best to make sure that we believe in the people we're working with, and we try to spend a month or so getting to know them a little bit before we actually even sign a deal with them, because then we're locked in. So we really have to kind of decide as a team, and then the whole group of us has to get excited about it, because it's just not one person. We all do different things, and everyone's really has an important role in what we do, and they have to get excited. They have to want to work with those people, and if they don't, then we just can't do it.
Graceanne?
I feel like I'm the passionate person on this topic, and these two have to kind of keep me going towards the goal, because I'm the one that is, with the chef that's really excited about the food they're cooking, or they fall in love with a space, and then Jasmine saying it's not realistic, or Keith is saying that real estate deal isn't the right one. So for me to be all in, it's more about the relationships, and it's interesting. It's such a common thread that we've all been talking about, is how important the people part of this is, and the relationships with, not just the chef, but the person that they are, putting their trust in to operate and to partner with them, and the landlord relationship and what their plans are for the future. And when all those things align, and the principals decide that this is the right thing, it's just something intuitive that you just know. And I'm forever a cheerleader when all those things come together, and that's when I'm all in.
And you've spoken a lot about the people and relationships, but what about location, especially in a city like New York? How important is location, Keith?
Well, we think location is one of and it's the old real estate adage, but it's so important. And it's not just location. Rent and the construction of the rent deal is really what's critically important these days. When we're working with a developer, we have to explain to them what the capabilities of the tenant and the restaurant group are that we're also trying to help and put in the right space, how much they really can. And we're trying to curate almost all these things as a percentage of sales based on the caliber and the quality of the restaurant, or quick serve restaurant, or fine dining restaurant. And we try to come up with percentages, and then we try to mark them back up. And now we're really working off of lower base rents and not really thinking about things in terms of square footage, and all that goes with the right location can fix so many of these little issues as they come. And we're fortunate to work in some amazing locations around the city and around the country where we know the foot traffic and the people are there. And then that kind of allows us to have that base of knowing things are going to be great from the begin with. But then we've also worked with, and Graceanne knows some of the people, and they're capable of bringing the traffic. And so for us, it's two different ways to look at it. And when someone's sitting on the best piece of real estate, we're going to make a deal one way with that operator, with that group. And when someone's sitting on not the best piece of real estate, it really gives our operators a leg up to really negotiate even a better deal.
So, Graceanne, then, in terms of location, as Keith said, I think it's pretty interesting. Is there if you don't have the best location in the world, what are some of the things that you do to draw people there? How do you make a location a destination?
It's funny, I just thought of this. I feel like that terminology, destination restaurant, is just a big red flag because there is so much that you have to bring, and it becomes a special occasion place. But I think having a restaurant that's for everyone, and I don't know why in my career this has happened, it's just kind of the way it went, but whether I was at Gramercy Tavern, there was a tavern that was walk-in and there was a dining room that was reservations. And then I moved on to Jean-Georges, where there was the Nougatine, which is, more casual, and then the fine dining in the back. And then I went to the Modern, which had the bar room in the front and the dining room in the back, same thing, lighter and more accessible. And I just felt like those models, whether I gravitated those or not, it was more because you could welcome everyone. So when you're, crazy cousin who has never been to New York before, doesn't want to sit in a fine dining restaurant and have a 3-hour experience, they felt much more comfortable coming to the front of the restaurant and having something more approachable food. So I think, these days, I can't tell you the last time that I made a reservation more than 2 days in advance. I never know what I'm doing. I think that having something where there's the ability for walk-in, there's the ability to do all the things from, everything from a private experience to just a drop-in is the most successful no matter where it is.
Graceanne mentioned red flags, and Jasmine, what are some of the red flags that you come across that you say this deal is just not going to work?
Yeah, I think maybe a little unlike Keith and Graceanne, I really truly began agnostic about the space, to the extent a client sees something and says, I felt something when I walked in, I think this is a space for me, or, especially I've got a lot of clients who, live in maybe underdeveloped parts of Brooklyn and are looking to do things there where maybe they would be one of the more, the first, recognizable or the first, Michelin-rated restaurant maybe in that entire neighborhood. What I care about is more, when I look at the Department of Buildings website, are there a dozen open violations? If you're in the West Village, do you have a landmarked facade? Has it been built to code? How annoying is that going to be to fix? Because what I need to do is protect my client for all of the work they need to do. I need to give them enough time to do the work they need to do. You need to give the landlord enough time to do what they need to do, but not too much. You need the right to terminate if the landlord is taking too long to fix the things they need to fix. It's an endless sort of parade of imagining the worst case scenario. So, I don't really care where it is. I mostly care about the facts of what exists in this building, what the certificate of occupancy looks like in this building. And to the extent that is causing a lot of problems, that's where I'll step in. But, I never give up any opinions about, neighborhood or foot traffic. That's just not, it's not really my job. I don't know anything about demographics. That's above my pay grade, essentially, so.
Keith, what are some of the biggest red flags that you come across when a deal just won't work?
Well, almost every time it's just knowing what the pro forma is supposed to be and how it's going to look, and try to understand what the financials of that situation are going to look like. And then really it starts to get into when we're dealing with groups that just aren't familiar with doing some of the development here in Manhattan, or different challenges that are with it, and just seeing the spending just start to tick and just start going, and people just losing complete track of that, and with a single goal of just whatever it takes to get them open at that point. And then we know from there that the wheels come off the wagon. It's really so hard to get them to go back on. So for us, it's really trying to stop that from happening. But people get so emotional in these things, and when you're working with individual restaurateurs, even more, there's just this lack. There's a lack of sense that gets put into some of these things, and we understand that, and we try to prevent that from happening. We try to put systems in place that'll prevent that from happening, but it doesn't always work that way. And then from there, we try to get things righted, and it's hard. You start going down that road. and it gets a little tricky. So we try to anticipate most of these things from the beginning. We have one person on our team that says quite frequently that this is not sustainable. And as a result, we make sure that he's around for those tough conversations. Right, Andrew?
Graceanne, what other red flags have you come across in your deal making?
Oh, interesting. Well, I think, there's never a perfect deal. There's always something, and I think it's minimizing what those red flags are. It's interesting how deals are put together now. I remember looking at contracts in my career, and you had to maintain your Zagat review level of, food had to be 25 or higher, or you had to maintain 3 stars in the New York Times, or you had to be in the top 50 Zagat or something like that. And the measurables, aren't there like they used to be. It's really about dollars and cents. And with, the marketing being so different with social media, people really want to have followers and, kind of create a huge social media presence. And I'd love to, if anybody can figure out how you get an ROI on that, it would be great to know. But I think going in with a brand that isn't well known and not having that kind of backing of a social presence or the dollars for PR and marketing is sometimes a red flag. I think I was talking to somebody this morning about how you go so far into the project and then they realize that they need, branding, or they need these kind of what they saw as extras, and realizing that for them to be successful, they really have to have these items, and just not kind of a red flag of not understanding really what the full scope of investment is.
Interesting. So I would love for each of you to give me an example of a partnership that wins and why. So why don't we start with you, Jasmine?
I think having common goals is the most important part. I definitely have clients who are they're chefy. They do television work. They're artists, and I think partnering with people who are very dollars and cents, sort of without regard to that making art is expensive and that making art is maybe not maximizing your profits. I think that's important. I have a client who also pays, is very proud of themselves for paying all of their staff a living wage. But what that does is it also lessens what their profit looks like. And being clear with ownership in this deal, that's what it's going to look like. This is a part of their branding. It's a part of their identity, is that they spend this money in this way, and having people agree. We want you to pay people a living wage. We support this. We are behind this. We do this as well. I think not having that, of course, then creates conflict later. They're open 6 months. They're, the profit should be around 18%. Why are they only at 11? Everybody's fussy about it. So I think just, being very transparent, having all of the communications the same way Keith has communications with clients before they agree to engage with them, making sure that all of those priorities financially and even on a non-financial basis are in alignment. But it's hard to do. It's hard to find the right partner. So,
Keith, give me an example of a partnership that wins.
So I'd say there's 2 aspects of what we do. So first, we have to remember we're consultants. So we walk into a room and we ask our client what it is, what their goals are. So as long as we can meet our client's expectation, that's a partnership that wins. So if it's getting the right person in that's going to end up taking over a whole lobby of an office building and having that person having aligned goals with the developer, that's a real win for us, and it's a win for the developer, and everybody works together. And it's really, we start every meeting and every engagement that we have with trying to find out what the goal of the developer, what the goal of the restaurateur is that we're working with, and that's really what makes it a victory for us. If we're working with a restaurateur, that's a different story. And we have the pleasure to work with Wiley Dufresne on what he's doing and the things that he does, and what makes that such a great partnership for us and why our whole team gets excited about working with somebody like Wiley is that he's got his art and his craft and what he does, And Wiley looks to get help and work with us on other things and parts of businesses that he doesn't do, and he works with us and works toward that, and we know where to stay away from when it comes to Wiley. I remember he gave my wife his cookbook, and then my daughter said, "Look, Mommy, now you can cook like Chef Wiley." But we know we can't, so we stay away from that stuff. Right?
Graceanne, example of a partnership that wins.
I think for me, the easiest partnerships that win are ones that the importance is actually not on the hospitality space or the restaurant. It's more on, for I don't know how many years ago now, but big car companies like Lexus or large banks have decided that partnering with hospitality is a good idea, and I think those are the easiest partnerships because it's not about the profitability of the food and beverage outlet, it's about the brand awareness and partnering with a great chef or a great restaurateur. So to me, those are the easiest ones. I am very fortunate that I'm in a situation where real estate is the most important part, and the amenities are just that. So they just want to create a community and have people want to be in the building, want to be together. So the microscope is out more on the leasing and the price per square foot and not of anything other than let's just break even. So to me, those are the best partnerships.
What's important too is we're all in the same industry having to do with hospitality. So even though a lot of what you do is business oriented, I'm interested to know in how you inject hospitality into what you do. Keith, how are you hospitable?
I can't wait for this answer.
Oh.
I'm gonna turn myself.
So I'm very fortunate that I have a group of a dozen people that all come from really great hospitality backgrounds. So we joke about it a lot, but they come from the best restaurant groups, and they've worked on and worked with the best restaurant people. And I have really great friendships with the people that work at these places, and we've spent a lot of time kind of trying to take the culture from those hospitality groups that they worked with and kind of inject it into what we do. We try our best to spend time together outside of work and even take a trip together and kind of like try to get our families to like understand what it is we do and be accepting of the fact that one of us has to work, 100 hours this week to get things done because we have deadlines and things. And I think it's really important that the families kind of understand and that everybody kind of works together as a group and really spends a lot of time getting to know each other, and also really understanding that taking people from great groups and that have left those great groups and really understood really good culture in their hospitality groups, and we try to really embrace that and kind of really bring that into our group.
Graceanne?
That was great.
I still seek her
Bravo.
approval. I don't know why.
You're very hospitable. You really are. You don't need a team. You are. I think when I'm in a meeting that I'm being introduced to an architect or a liquor lawyer, attorney, whoever it is, we always just jump right into the subject. We always jump into, all right, what can you do for me? How much is it going to cost? And try it. It's really interesting. People get really taken aback where I just start the meeting by saying, well, tell me about yourself. And they start talking about what they do. No. Like, where'd you grow up? What did you do? Did you go to school? How did you get to where you are? And it really puts people at ease. And that I'm not just investing in the fact that they can do this skill for me or this service, but that I want to work with people that I understand and know on a more personal level.
Jasmine, how do you make being an attorney hospitable?
Yeah. I actually think that, the part of me, and I've waited tables like my entire life, I'm really a service industry person. I come from the service industry. I think the way that that's reflected, and I don't want to say not necessarily with my clients, I feel like I try to be approachable and accessible with my clients. I try to make these confounding documents less confounding. I really want to make sure they understand it in a way that's practical, but I do think Really, where the hospitality comes in is when I'm working with opposing counsel, when I'm working with somebody else's, lawyer, when I'm working with the opposite partner, side of this deal. I am truly, and especially when it comes to lease negotiations, I always get what I want by being kinder, by being nicer, by appealing to reason. I don't play the tough, person, mean, whatever. I'm also 5 feet tall. Like, there's only so much intimidation that I can convey to any single person. So yeah, I think generally speaking, much of my hospitality background comes into trying to get what I want from people in a way that is, not coming, that is honest and respectful and kind.
So important in everything that we do, and as someone who was given the title of Chief Snack Officer, my husband's business, I can relate that being hospitable is very important no matter what you're doing. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Graceanne. Thank you, Jasmine. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Fun. Great.